Everything. Okay. Oh, we're live. All right. Hello, dear Starshines. Christina here with Rise of the Multidimensional Human and Lightbody Academy. Welcome to today's lunchtime chats. Woohoo! Okay, so if you can see that smoke, my dear darling partner has decided he wanted to I asked him if he would sage sage the area. There's been a lot of movement here, so anyway, that's what that smoke is. Welcome, 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 everybody. For those of you who are new, my name is Christina. I am the acceleration expert, and I am here to provide a liberated perspective on topics and issues that challenge us wayshowers, starseeds, visionaries of the new paradigm. Normally, I have a thread that goes within this group called our Facebook community called Rise of the Multidimensional Human, and that is where a lot of these topics for conversation come from that. I recently opened up a second avenue of conversation on Telegram, which is Rise of the Multidimensional Human on Telegram. So I invite you guys to check that out. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As you come in, go ahead and let me know you're here. Say hi. Hello, dear lovely Tony. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have so much to talk about, and thank you everybody who responded to the thread that we posted in the group. There's a lot of great questions, and there were so many great questions. I decided just to go through those questions after we do the activation in this chat. So thank you guys for being such a rich resource and inspiration. Something that's really on my mind these days is people's relationship with TI, and different technologies that are being brought forward via the mind control technology, but also the jab, stuff like this. So that wasn't necessarily put into the thread in the Rise group. It actually began in a conversation in our secondary group that's called Empowered Souls and Free Thinkers Alliance. That was something that sprouted out from Facebook's effort to ostracize and persecute people that others have deemed as extremist. Some of our beloved members of this group who are extremely valuable in their contributions were flagged for that. So we created a secondary group for that kind of content and those kinds of conversations to transpire without it risking our Rise community. So that's Empowered Souls and Free Thinkers Alliance. And the conversation that got started up in there was a dear brother who's a filmmaker was asking if I heard about AI being taken out. And this, to me, this is a very simple question. But then when I saw more and more how it was moving within the thought forms and the collective, I realized, oh, wait a minute, there's some things I really need to talk about within that. So if I have time, I want to dive into some of that as well, in addition to those questions and those comments that you guys put into the initial thread. So hello, darling Starshines. Hello, dear Hodai, Soul Schooling. Hello. And dear Carol, welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward in the activation portion of our talk. So the theme, it seems like I talk about perhaps the same things in different ways with each of these chats. And what I want to point out is that, there are many, many ways that lies get woven in with the truth. And until we can look at all those different angles and sharpen our compass so we have a good compass to seeing the lies that are within the truth, all the information that's being released to humanity right now is just going to make us angry. And that's because when I say us, I'm talking about our particular community. That's because we're intuitives, we're empaths, and when lies get piggybacked on the truth, when we hear the information, it strikes a chord, and it's either fear or anger or both. And so that's why I keep tackling these issues in different angles. And it seems like it's, similar, but, it's important to unravel these threads so we can get to that place where no matter the information that comes to us, no matter what kinds of lies are piggybacked on the truth, we can see right through it and we won't get triggered with anger or fear or, any of those kinds of things that throw us off. Okay. So in this activation portion, I usually keep us within the nesting doll of the Milky Way galaxy. And I want to acknowledge, especially with the group here, that we exist far beyond the nesting doll of the Milky Way galaxy. It's just that waking up to the galactic mind is the, say, bare minimum of expansion necessary for a human to wake up. And there's a conversation about humans being, hijacked, but then also young souls versus old souls and stuff like this. And earth seeds versus star seeds, this kind of thing. And my sense is that the vast spectrum of potentials that are here on this planet is why it's only up to the galactic mind that's required, because this is something that's hardwired into our reality. We don't realize that because of the shrouds and the lies that we're told in our cultures and religions and stuff like that. But as those things get lifted, those obscurities get lifted, and we can see the truth of who we are, it's very easy for one to become activated to the galactic mind. And once they do, then it's a quantum reality shift in so many ways. You see things very differently, you perceive things very differently. Now, those of us who have expanded beyond that has its place too. This is actually, in a lot of ways, we are helping facilitate the awakening of humanity by maintaining our connection with who we are beyond the galactic mind. Okay. And you guys know who you are, the ones that are awoke beyond the galactic mind. We are rather unique, and we're oftentimes very different than even the spiritual communities that we're in. It's like we're like a little bit different than the collective that we're choosing to connect with and build relationship with. Hello, dear sister Joanne. Hello, dear Tammy. Hello, Nanette. Good to see you, sweeties. So even though many of us are beyond the galactic mind, this is still a helpful thing for us to go through, because it just, it's like, dusting off the furniture, when everything's nice and clean, it feels so much different than when everything's covered with dust. Yeah. So we're just polishing and making it clean, so the energy moves more freely, and we are allowing more potential for folks to wake up beyond their typical reality that they navigate. Okay. Hello. Hi, Heather. Good to see her. Feather. I don't know, that always trips me up. Hello, darling. Welcome. All right, so we have our galactic mind. Here's our galactic mind. This is the outer nesting doll. And this right here, this outer nesting doll, you can look at this as even the outer edges of our energy field. At the very top of our energy field, we have something that the Kero and some indigenous elders that I've worked with in the past refer to as the Werakocha. The star beings that I've worked with that talk about this center, they would refer to it as the golden chakra, or the galactic portal, our personal connection to the infinite. And some have referred to it as the 8th chakra. Now, when you're working with star people who've been working with humans for a long time, they adapt their understanding and teachings to whatever understanding and teachings we have. So if you're one who works with the Vedic chakra model, they're going to work with you and teach you on that level. You know what I mean? Using that language. It's not that particular model is so within the star context, but that's the language that you understand. So therefore, that's the language they're going to communicate information to you with. Okay. So they are very good at making sure that they tell us stories that we understand, telling us things that we have no ability to comprehend or integrate doesn't do us much good. And actually, most of the time, it will traumatize us in some way because of the energy. Now, this 9-dimensional model that I'm talking about, when it was originally being introduced to the collective, there were people that quite literally would fall out of their chairs and pass out, because the energy, the consciousness that this was conveying was bumping up against belief systems that were deeply ingrained within the biosuit. deeply, and not only belief systems, but implant technology, etheric technology, stuff in the Akasha, so people would literally check out because they could not be present with the energy of what this was conveying. So so when we work with star people, it's important for us to remember that they always do their best to work with our lens of perception to convey understandings, to convey ideas. Okay. There are ways to cultivate your system in such a way where you can process energy where you don't have a story or an understanding, but that's very unique and it's not very common. There's some people that do this, and they're usually considered visionaries in the artistic field or in poetry or something like this. Just wanting to put my finger on that. Okay. Dear Sister Soul Schooling says, I'm sorry, I'm saying sister, that could be an assumption. It says, beyond the galactic mind, probably why I most of the times feel like I don't totally fit in anywhere here. I cannot express enough how much these weekly chats assist me. Oh, that's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. And this is why we do this, because, we are, we're the black sheep among the black sheep. I don't know what, I mean, I don't know how you would call that any other way. But yeah, we just have a different understanding of things, and we're here for a reason. We're not here to be in conflict with the world. We're here to bring things and metabolize and help bring more harmony into this world as humanity wakes up. We're quite literally strapped into a roller coaster and we can't get off. This is all a magnificent, crazy, insane, topsy-turvy, upside down kind of ride. Yeah. Until you remember who you are beyond who you think you are, then this wild ride starts to reveal itself as an amazing miracle, one that we are deeply grateful to be able to take part in. Okay. So we're in different places. There's a spectrum of that, of course, but the fact that we are an infinite being in a biosuit means that we have very common needs with other humans. We have the need to feel connected. We have the need to feel understood. We have a need to be seen, stuff like this. And these aren't small egoic needs. These are humanity needs. These are needs for us to fit in and work in the context of humanity. So we're sorting all that out on the levels that we can. All right. So the gateway to this galactic mind is that Wetakocha, that golden ball right at the top of our energy field. That golden ball at the top of our energy field can be moved and manipulated. You can put your hands in it. You can pull energy from it and bring it to different parts of your body. You can bring it to physical things. Sometimes I like to use the energy of my Wetakocha in conjunction with sand paintings. I've talked about sand paintings many times in these chats. And this is where you create an energetic replica of something, and it could be anything. Imagination's the limit. And then I'll pour energy of my Wetakocha within that sand painting to help mulch up and mikwi and turn energies around. I'll do stuff like that. Sometimes I wait a little while before I do something like that because I feel like things need to flesh out more. For me, it takes some time to see a situation and watch it evolve for a little while before I even am clear on what I'm going to be putting into the sand painting and what I'm going to be bringing the energy of the Wetakocha into. And that's actually what I'm doing with the current situation that's happening. It's like I need to wait and let things flesh out more and more because there's a lot that I don't know. We don't know what we don't know, right? Yeah, but at the same time, we're all connected. So everybody within the web is going to flush out what we don't know, and then I'll be able to, alchemize the situation. So you guys can do this too. You can alchemize any situation as things pop up for you, your relationship with family or the collective, or this current shenanigans going on. We can all be doing these things. When you're doing this, you are utilizing your ability to influence the reality around you. Okay, everything starts with you. As soon as we point the finger outwards and make it a blame game on, doesn't matter what the blame game is about, we are actually giving our power away to that situation. Okay. And we need to wake up out of that. And it's imperative that we wake up out of that, because humanity, I know there's a narrative out there that the earth is going to split in two, like there's an awakened earth and a sleep earth. And from my perceptions of working with the Pachamama, there's only one timeline, only one. And that timeline is the one that she has decided that we're all going down. So in this way, this is what I mean about, we're on this roller coaster, we're strapped on, we're along for the ride. So she's made her decision. And so has the sun, and so has the galaxy. Okay. All these beings have made their choice, and now we get to watch it unfold. And how we be is us deciding our relationship to that unfoldment. Now, here, the group here, we're in conscious relationship with that unfoldment to varying degrees. And this is very important, because in a lot of, like I was saying, we are the ones who are the way showers of how to do this. Others in humanity will wake up because we are doing these things. We are holders of the flame. We are holders of the torches. We are the ones clearing the dust and cobwebs and blocks out of dream time, so people can access dream time even more than what they have been. So our role here, just being present in a biosuit, is essential to all of this. Yeah, see, guys, feel that there's emotion in there. Pachamama's called you here, and you said yes. That was a yes made in love. That was a yes made in the spirit of service. Okay. So the Widow Coach is the gateway to this outer nesting doll, that eighth chakra or golden chakra, or whatever you want to call that, that's at the top of our energy field. And you can use that to influence things all around you, within you, and so on and so forth. Then that next nesting doll is that all that is level of awareness of who we are, the all that is. This is the isness level of who we are, the isness. The isness, you can even look at it as the breath that breathes through all things. There is nothing that does not have this isness as part of it. All right, so there's nothing you can do. You cannot be forsaken from the isness. All beings are part of the isness, organic or AI. All presence is part of the isness. I know this is controversial, I understand, but we've been trained to fear something that is not something to fear. We've been trained to make something an enemy that does not have to be our enemy, okay? So I'm saying we as in humanity, the human race. So the isness is within everything. There's nothing that's not encompassed within the isness that is a part of the isness. Even this outer nesting doll here is a part of the isness. Okay, so this outer nesting doll we can call the Mother of God. The inner nesting doll here we can call the actual Godhead itself. Now, what most people think is God is not this isness. It's something with rules that judges, that does all this stuff. So you guys are aware of that. So when I'm saying isness, I'm not talking about dogma or religion in any way, and nor am I speaking about New Age ideas or concepts about the isness. Because really, quite literally, all the doorways that could lead to our liberation and awakening have been contaminated with lies that diverts our life force energy away from the truth of who we are. A fully realized being has the ability, if there's, being on this planet, a fully realized being on this planet will change everything about the consciousness of this planet. Just one being, okay? And these are the stories that we hear about the avatars that have come to this planet. In Hindu, they talk about Krishna. The coming of Krishna changed everything, right? And then we have the story of the coming of a being that we're calling Jesus, which I don't think that it was at all his name, but that being on this planet changed everything. It thwarted, according to certain star knowledge resource information, is that his presence on this planet thwarted the first attempt to overtake consciousness of this planet. Okay, so the more we become more realized and walk towards that path, that you can see how this does have an impact for all life that's here. Okay. We're all in a work in progress. We'll call it like that. We're all a work in progress. And we can be perfect and magnificent even while we're in our process. This is so. Okay, so we have our all that is nesting doll. Some might call the God, goddess, all that is. Okay, and then from that place, we choose to have individuations. And why we choose to individuate is very different for all of us, okay? Some of us have a story of being kicked out. Some of us have a story of saving another being. Some of us have a story of simply in the adventure of creation, okay? We all have a very unique story on why that frequency of our individuation chose to come out, okay? And this frequency can be considered the soul song. It can be considered, the core tone. There's lots of terms that humans are aware of about this. And then that tone, that soul song, condenses even more into a nesting doll that is our light body, the map of the unfoldment of our consciousness. This map is outside of time, and it contains all the ways that we separate and all the ways we come home from that separation. Okay. All the ways. And we can heal deep levels of separation within us by going to that light body level and connecting with the blueprint of what that was about. And a lot of us, this is, we use this level of ourselves to acknowledge certain levels of interdimensional entanglements. Like we go past the Akasha and acknowledge entanglements on this level. And, it's really profound when we do this. This is how it's on this level that we're able to step out of the different levels of the matrix that profoundly affect our subconscious and our experience. All right, and then from the blueprint of who we are, then we have the actual exploration that blueprint gives us. That blueprint gives us all the potentials that we're interested in exploring as an infinite being. And we experience that as having multiple lifetimes, parallel lifetimes, and so on and so forth. And this next nesting doll, that 5D field. Oh, here, let me label these to make it a little bit easier. That 5D field is what many of us will call the Akasha. Okay. And this is all the lifetimes that we ever experience. And something to keep in mind that when we are in these inner dimensions looking out, we experience these lifetimes as something separate from us, as in a past life or a parallel life or whatever. But when we're coming this way to it, these lifetime experiences are all happening simultaneously. It all happens at once. So when you are from an inner nesting doll perspective coming out, you're going to experience the Akasha having time that's cyclical. But when you're coming from this direction, from an outer nesting doll looking in, you're going to see the Akasha as this great, like a lightning bolt through the sky. It all happens instantly at once. Okay. And you instantly realize, you instantly see, you instantly have the experience. And then from there, there's a thought that happens on a galactic level, cosmic or galactic level, depending on where you're at. And that is going to add a whole nother thing into this field, tone, map, and field. And then the nesting doll within that is that sense of who you are, who you think you are right now, belief systems of what you believe about reality, about yourself, about the cosmos. That 4D field is around our solar ring. It's around our planet. It's around our immediate area, our continent, our country, our cities, our families. This 4D field is nested in with all this, and it's individuations with belief systems and structures. And there are many ways that these structures are anchored and held in. Some of it is through our legal system, like putting things in writing and people all agreeing that this has an authority. So there's a collective agreement that something has authority. There's that kind of thing. And there's all these mechanisms to get that collective agreement where everybody says, yes, this is so, and I'm going to abide by that. You have religions. Most of those are all in the 4D field. Most religions are not even talking about the all that is. They're talking about us being subservient to some creator God that tells us that we're sinners or not. You know what I mean? Like this is like there's a program that we have to go along in order to be considered a virtuous, embraced, loving human. And that's all program. And I'm using the word program on purpose because what people don't recognize is that a lot of the stuff that is in that 4D field that we're all agreeing to is a TIAI program that's ancient, that has been brought in to influence humanity. Yes, So go back thousands of years when the being that we currently know as Jesus came to this planet. There was AI in existence back then. You reverse even further back 10, 15,000 years ago with Atlantis and Lemuria. You all know, right? AI was in existence then. You go back even further, all the way, say millions and millions and millions of years to those that still have entanglements within the Orion Collective. There was AI back then. Okay, so what's happened is that humanity has finally reached a point in its intelligence where it can process the idea of technical intelligence. Okay, before we could not have any kind of relationship to it other than it being magic or it being God or it being something like a miracle. But now that we have a different understanding, we can see it for what it is. It's a technical intelligence. So this 4D field is heavily influenced with technical intelligence, heavily. And I know that triggers folks, but I'm telling you this to give you an empowered perspective, not a disempowered perspective. There is absolutely, it is within you to be able to reclaim your sovereignty from all that. And be clear in your truth and move forward, right? Christ did it. Krishna did it. Okay, it's been done before, and it's going to be done again. And if you remember the teachings the teachings of the gospel of Christ, he said that you are going to do all this and more, which means we're not only going to wake up and get liberation from this influence, we're going to wake up to even more and be liberated even further. And I'm suspecting this is us waking up beyond the galactic mind on a collective level, not just us individuals. And that's my suspect. I'm everything's hypothesis in this, around that for me, because you don't know until it happens. And this is something that a problem, and I've talked about this a lot with channeled information. Any channeled information that's talking about something to come, don't buy in. I can't buy into at all. Okay. Because there is only the right now. There is only right now. Your actions and your experiences of right now, that is what decides what step you're going to take forward and what kind of trajectory that you're on. No being can come to you and say, this is your trajectory. Okay. And have it be the truth. What happens is they plant an idea in our awareness, and then we believe the idea, then we start creating the idea. It's a self-creating prophecy. You understand? A self-manifesting prophecy. So in that way, it works. But when you are a multidimensional sovereign being, only you can decide what action you're going to be taking in the moment. Only you know your perspective. You see what I'm saying? It's helpful to see, a situation with many different kinds of perspectives, because then you get a bigger picture. That's great. But there's no authority other than you when you're sovereign. Yeah. All right. Next nesting doll. Next nesting doll is that 3D, that experience of space, separation, however you want to call it. Now, for a lot of belief systems, they believe that 3D is a place, this realm that Pachamama gives us as a prison planet, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you know what? It is so if that is truly how you believe and how you function. If you have a being that's higher than you that evaluates your worthiness, then you are a slave. If you have a being that's higher than you and that knows more than you can possibly know, and you have to listen to that being or else you're going to be in the wrong, that's being enslaved. You see what I'm saying? So when you and humanity is very confused, they don't know how to approach galactic beings and cosmic beings in a way that's sovereign, that's not arrogant. And that's because the ego driver, we have these ideas and we let the ego driver be in charge. The ego driver has to understand before it can do something. The ego driver has to feel like it has a measure of control. The ego driver, is the petty tyrant. But when your infinite being is in charge, your ego driver becomes acutely aware that it's the one in the back seat listening to the conversation. That's the true relationship. So, and actually just recently we had an experience of that where a collective of beings came to connect with us. And that's all we could do. It's like talking really kind of muddied the waters. We just had to be with certain pieces. We may be able to, say certain things about certain pieces, but it was very clear for me anyway, that I was just sitting there. My ego driver was sitting there witnessing a conversation happening between my spirit and these other beings. That is how that's what's natural for the human. Okay, this is when your heart is speaking, your spirit is the truth, right? And you just listen and learn. But humanity doesn't have that kind of relationship, and most of the teachings out there don't help us cultivate that kind of relationship. It cultivates a relationship of fear or subservience, or I'm not worthy, or false humility. That's a big one, false humility. You'll find out where you're not being honest with yourself, because it's gonna create a hiccup and disruption. I've had my own bouts with that recently. It's like I thought that I was in this camp, but then I realized, oh no, actually my core value is over here in this camp. So it's a constant movement. It's a constant growth. Nothing is ever stagnant. We might feel stagnant, but that's because there's parts of us that aren't willing to move. Once we say yes to the movement, then the universe is with us and completely, let's say, colluding on our behalf. So this 3D space, this is the only place where we're actually separate. In this lens, this is the only place where we're actually separate from our surroundings. As soon as we go up in perspective, it's instantly collective. As soon as you go up in each of these perspectives, the connection becomes deeper and deeper and deeper, until the point where there is nothing other than one thing. Then there's only isness, right? So this place is very delicious to experience. This 3D space is a very delicious place to experience and create and have that sense of separation. You can have art, you can have poetry, you can have relationship, you can have there's all these things that are possible, and it's a very fertile field for our awareness to be within. And then the next state within that, I'm just going to call it 3D. And then the next state within that is the 2D, which is the telluric realm. Everything that's underneath a layer, our skin and deeper, is the telluric realm. So this is a collection of systems. And these systems are broken down into organs, and these organs are broken down into tissues, and these tissues are broken down into cells, and these cells are broken down to atoms and molecules, so on and so forth. Yeah. Same thing with the crust of the earth. It's the foundation for this space to happen. And then we have the next level, which is that iron core with that crystal core, the 1D, the center of it all, which is our great universal mother. When I say universal mother, I do mean universal mother. I don't mean planetary mother, even though she is our planet right now, but her consciousness is an entire universe condensed into this reality. That's why there's so much variety here. We're quite literally looking at all the different kinds of life that exist within our universe when we walk on this planet. This is part of the great miracle that what this planet is, this realm. Okay. All right. So let me get back to the the questions here. All right. Yeah, I'm inside today because there's all kinds of craziness going on outside, and the sound was a bit of an issue. So we're here doing it inside. All right, guys, let me know if this is making sense, these pieces that I'm talking about. I do want to get back to that AI piece, TI piece, because it's important for us to frame things up in a way that's not a where we're powerless. We absolutely have abilities. We absolutely have a choice. There are ways for us. You don't have to be an enlightened ascended master in order to have empowerment in the face of the AI-TI game. Okay. All right, dear sister Joanne says, thinking of Earth, the Living Library by Barbara Marciniak. Yes, I've never read that, but I've heard a lot about it. So thank you for that. And okay, so this reference here is also from Joanne. She says, this is the thread that I posted in the group. She says, I've been so into re-seeing history lately. Okay, and what I know about what she's been posting is this theory of Tartaria, okay, which is our history being hijacked, and maybe a narrative similar to Atlas Shrugged, if you guys have ever heard of this novel. You know, the interesting thing, Joanne, is that a dear, brilliant Sister Starshine that I worked with years ago gave me her copy of Atlas Shrugged and told me I really needed to read it. And here it is. It's arriving again. All right, so she says she's very into re-seeing history lately. The planetary disruptions at various times over the eons, which have either been hidden on purpose or misinterpreted due to little evidence and narrow perception. Don't know if there is a doable question here or not. Well, there is, because in order for us to wake up to the truth of who we are, we have to let go of the lies we've been told about who we are. Okay, so that means we have to wake up out of, see, our history really has been manipulated, and we all know that history is written by the winners, don't we? Our history has been manipulated, and once we wake up out of the manipulation, then we have more opportunity to see the truth, the history. We can actually let go of the stories and open ourselves up to the stories and the knowledge that is within the nature around us. And the knowledge I'm talking about is the wisdom of the stone people, the wisdom, right, of the mountains. These beings are living beings. This is living energy. This is a consciousness that we can connect to. Now, it's difficult for us, you know, in our waking human world to connect to it, but we can have a natural shared overlap reality that we connect with these beings, and that's our dream time. Okay, so you can quite literally have a conversation, and I don't mean words, have a conversation and a download that comes to you from a mountain being, that comes to you from a stone being. That is the real history. But in order for us to be able to connect with that kind of history, we have to let go of the stories that we've already believed to be the truth. Okay, because our inclination, the way we've been conditioned and trained, is that we accept something as a truth, and other information that comes in that goes against that being the truth, we have a tendency to throw out, to ignore, or to allow it to be so with suspicion. Okay, and in order for us to truly feel the stories of nature, the stories of the rock and the mountains, and receive those transmissions, we ourselves need to be in an uplifted state, our heart open, our beingness free. Okay, so this is a really important part of, we have to be in a certain way of consciousness to even have access to these records, and then we need to figure out what we need to do to remain at that level of consciousness to digest the download that we got. Okay, so there's a lot woven in here, but if we're getting triggered, maybe trauma is getting triggered, maybe deep belief systems that we inherited from our ancestors are getting triggered, you know, we have to process and release that energy that's getting triggered before we can be still and calm and open to what's being downloaded to us by these other beings. One of the things I have people do in the Lightbody Academy is reconnect with the nature spirits that are overseeing their birth. This is something that I learned within the Kiro tradition, which is, they call it the Itu Apu. This is the Apu of your birth, the one who's oversees your path in this realm. you can connect with that being. That being has an agreement to be in connection with you, which means that that's a perfect place to start the relationship with nature, our relationship with the earth, our relationship with the stone people. Okay. All of this is at our access. For some people, it could be a body of water, but for most people, it's usually a land formation of some sort. Okay, so yes, history. We have to let go of the old history in order for us to have be an open vessel for the history, the records that are available around us. The other thing that has memory is water. Being in touch with ancient waters is very, very helpful. And actually, a lot of people get immense amount of healing from being in ancient waters. So, or even in connection with ancient waters. So this is a thing. There is a race of people called the Bone Po. They are they're the indigenous of Tibet. Okay, so this is before the Chinese lines and Mongolian lines started to settle in that area. There's these people that were the indigenous of that realm. Now they've embraced Buddhism, of course, so they have they practice like a shamanic Buddhism. Okay, but they have a powder that is like a homeopathic treatment. It's also a record of the history with the nature devas and the plant realms. And their formula goes back many tens of thousands of years, guys. Yes, there's humans that do this. And what they do is that every fresh batch that they make with the herbs of the area, with the plant life of the area, they take a pinch of the old batch and transfer homeopathically into the new batch. And they make huge batches in ceremony every equinox. Okay, and they travel the world. They hand out these powders, these herbal elixirs. They go all over the world doing that. So they are very fortunate because they have retained the memories of they've retained the history, the story that's within the plants and within the stones, that's within nature. They retained that by doing this process every year. Just food for thought with that. And dear sister Melissa, she says she would like a part 2 from last week. Yeah. I'll have to, if we can get a little bit more specific on that, because there's so many directions that part 2 can take, because these topics are really big that I'm talking about. And for me, it's very simple, but for you guys, I know that, you're perceiving it in a different way. So the more specific the question, the better for me. All right, then dear sister Carol says, what are all the odd sicknesses popping up? Colds or sinus infections? Is there something behind them? Okay, so folks who are into holistic health are going to say, absolutely, there's something behind them, right? Energetic dis-ease starts within the energy field. And here's one of those pieces. So the light body is this nesting doll right here. So the wisdom keepers of the Kero retained the teachings that descended from the Inca, who were realized humans. That you can actually divert the experience of a disease or an illness by addressing it when it's still in its energetic form within the body. Okay, so if you aren't able to address these things energetically in the body before it manifests physically, then of course you're going to have that, that you're going to have to deal with the physical manifestation. Once it's manifested on the physical level, you need to treat it on the physical level and work out the energy that is the part of the blueprint that manifested that dis-ease. Okay, so when you get into mucus kind of stuff, this is usually it's stuff like grief, sadness, depression, guilt. Okay, it's a heavy energy in the body that's within the body, and physically it's trying to expel it. Okay, so when you say odd sicknesses, what this flags to me is that it's happening at a time that's outside the model of understanding of catching something, or you know what I mean? Like maybe normally you have allergies, but now it happens in the sinuses, but now it's happening at times that aren't normally the times where you're where your allergies are flaring up, or so it's out of the pattern of the usual. Okay, so that's what that odd is telling me. In outside looking in, what I would say is that it's because we're processing a lot more energy a lot more quickly, and our body is quite literally under a lot of stress to keep up in this process. The more energetic clearing we do, the more personal, energetic, emotional hygiene we practice, this is all going to help support our body in the process that it's in. Our body is getting bombarded left and right, not just with technology stuff, but emotional stuff, ancestral stuff, belief system stuff. Okay, there's a lot happening, and it's our lineage. It's also the lands that we live on. Right? Our lands have been witness and holders of atrocities throughout thousands of years. Okay. And this next question, Kitty May says something about this. And I really want to talk about this, because you guys, especially when you're connected into the history of the land that you live on, it's purging, and you can be a part of that process. And actually, many of you are part of the process, whether you like it or not. Okay. Whether you're aware of it or not. So I want to give some recommendations on this. But first, I'm going to pause, read some of the comments, and then go on to what dear sister Kitty is experiencing with the Civil War, processing Civil War trauma. Okay. All right. So dear sister, all right, dear soul schooling says, have you ever considered having the settings so that you can receive super chats during B's lunchtime special? I don't know what that is. I'll have to look into that. Have you ever considered adjusting the settings so that you can receive donations during the lunchtime chats? I think it's super. Oh, well, that's a great idea. Thank you, darling. I'll consider that. Actually, I have people that ask me if I take donations all the time. And, I'm a little thick and a bit slow about that, because I'm, but I did put a donation button on our website, Lightbody Academy. Actually, it's not a button, it's a menu option. I did put a donation part in the menu there, because so many people have been asking me about donations, and that's really sweet. And I appreciate the support in that way. And so I guess that's a possibility. You can do that. I am with the Lightbody team. So there's okay. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay. So Heather's answering you right there. How awesome is that? All right. P.S. Starshines, we created a donation link due to the influx. Okay. So I have a dear sister Starshine totally has my back responding to that. Thank you so much, dear. And this is dear sister Heather that's doing all that. Great. Okay. Did you ever notice that the people who exhibit certain dis-ease have certain character traits, especially addiction, that have a certain look about them? Oh, I certainly have. And we've had conversations like that where, the alcoholic nose, there's a nose of, when someone who drinks a lot of alcohol, they start to get this kind of like rich indented schnoz, we've talked about that, because there's some people that have it that actually are not alcoholics. And so we've been in conversation, like, what is this about? A lot of times, all right, so when we have addictions, we're stressing the body chronically in the same way over a long period of time. So that development of the schnoz, in my perception anyway, is a lot of stress put on the adrenal system and the liver. Okay, so what that tells me, if someone has that and they're not actually in addiction, they are still living out that pattern of putting extreme, consistent amount of stress on their adrenals and liver. Okay. That's how I see it. But if there's other people in the audience here that has ideas about that, feel free to respond. I think this is an interesting piece to look at. Addictions are really up right now for a lot of people. And what we need to realize is that addictions can take many, many forms. It does not have to be a drug or an alcohol. We can be addicted to sex. We can be addicted to electronics. And that's really what's happened to a lot of humanity right now. We can be addicted to fear, which is that adrenal system, the hormonal endocrine system response to stress. Okay, we can be addicted to that. There's adrenaline junkies. You guys have heard of this, right? There's bliss junkies. That so there's all different kinds of things that we can be addicted to. We could be addicted to drama, right? There's lots of pieces here. All right, all right. Let me get on to Kitty's thing, because this piece that she's sharing about is profound, and I think that this is a massive service that we can do for the lands that we live on and the spirits of the lands that have been here for many, many, many thousands and thousands of years. Okay, I've had experience on this land that I'm at, that we are currently dwelling upon right now. The fracturedness that happens to humanity, the trauma, the war, the blood spill, the violence, has an impact on the nature, has an impact on the lands, okay? And spilling blood in mass on the land has an impact on the consciousness of that land, absolutely. So, so let me get on to what Kitty was sharing in her experience. Now, she's a very sensitive empath, this one, and psychic intuitive. All right, she says, I've been trying to get through a 1861, 1862 Civil War book, retyping it. It is, all right, it is full of letters by a lady, all about her observations while working as a nurse. I feel blessed to be called to hold these men in love and to transmute this soldier war consciousness, but every time I start, I can barely get through a few pages. At best, before becoming so overwhelmed with grief, with anger, okay, at their suffering, that it makes me physically and mentally ill. I know I have the ability to continue, yet it is so overwhelming to read these entries. I'm struggling. I know what I feel is nothing compared to the suffering I am reading of, but as an empath, I feel like I am reliving it as I read it. I have had many other massively traumatic energies present, and I managed okay. But this is written about the boys and men from Ohio, and specifically from the town I live in. Big key right there, guys. Specifically from the town I live in and surrounding townships, which seems to really affect me more intensely. I love my gifts and I'm honored to witness. I guess I just need a little advice on how to read these graphics first and these graphic firsthand accounts without having it disrupt my whole being to the point of causing me serious breakdowns of my abilities to function for some time. Sometimes it's the entire day / night. Question, is there a way? This pain is unlike anything I have helped transmute before. If I didn't need the income, I would never have read anything like this otherwise. Very much enjoying the shifts of the new world coming into view more and more each day. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so what she's talking about is really important, and we need to not dismiss this, because this is the foundation of everything. And this actually is the foundation to us having sovereignty in our dream time as well. Okay, so the lands you live upon, up until very recently, up until the past like 50 years or so, we all ate and drank the water and foods that were grown on the lands that we lived upon. Okay, and the lands that we lived upon were lands that our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents lived. So we had a very deep, intimate, telluric connection with those lands. And in other languages, you know, they, especially indigenous languages, they don't acknowledge land ownership at all. Instead, what it is that how they convey it is that the land owns you. You belong to the land, not that the land belongs to you. Okay, so the understanding is flipped. And there's a very important distinction in here, because we are affected by the lands we live on, whether we recognize it or not. She's reading these stories of massive drama of people in her community that lived in the lands. Okay, yeah, this is before her time, but the land remembers these people. The land remembers this pain, you understand? And it's not just their pain, it's the pain of their parents, it's the pain of their grandparents, okay? Their blood may not have been spilled in Ohio, may or may not have been spilled in Ohio, but yet the telluric intelligence that was inside of each of these humans, oh, and I can cry when I say this, went through the drama with them, okay? See, in this way, we got to recognize we are not alone. Everything is with us when we go through these pieces. You know, our biosuit is full of atoms and molecules and proteins and, you know, pieces, parts of everything around us. So it's having the experience with us. It's not separate. Remember, separation is only in that 3D. As soon as you go into the telluric realm, we're all deeply connected. So, and I'm glad that she put this in here, because there's a very important recommendation to have. And this is something that our indigenous have taught us, well, some of us, and that is the power of dance, the power of ceremony, the power of drumming and singing, okay? So you can dance this trauma through your body, okay? It's really great if you can get with a collective of people to tune into the suffering that you're aware of here and move it through. You call on the spirits to join you. You call on the devas of the land. You call on all these parts of you, all these parts that are engaged with your reality. And you say, come dance with us, dance to wake people up out of their depression, dance to wake these elementals that are stuck in these processes, dance to move this energy and liberate us on a collective level from being trapped in this suffering. Okay. This is some of the highest form of healing we can offer our collective. For real. This is some of the highest form of healing we can offer. And it's essential. If it's coming to you, dear Starshine, to do this, I mean, I would venture to say that the lands are inviting you to do this. They're calling for it to happen. And, don't do it. I would recommend not doing it by yourself. See if there's somebody, at least a three or more people to join you in the process of this. That ecstatic dance will not only clean up the energies, but it'll also bring you through the journey of pain and back to ecstatic connection again. Okay. There's many, many people who have been working the trauma dramas of the Civil War over the ages. And, it's not that, it's done and now, you do it once and now it's done. It's not like that. Blood has been spilt and violence in this land for a long time. And it's going to take a lot for all of us together collectively to join together to clean it up. Okay. And this is where a lot of disconnect comes with shamanic traditions. I'm remembering a story that dear Starshine told me about an African Sangoma that was sharing his dreams with some of the shamanic collective. And they did not receive his dream well because they could not recognize on how they are disconnected from their lands. They are, intellectually, they're brilliant. Sure, then they can move energy, they can do all these things, but their heart and soul is not embracing the reality that is the land that they live upon. Okay. And a lot of us are transplants. We were born on the East Coast, now we live in the West Coast, blah, 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 blah. And Western society is not one that is honoring and connected to the earth. If anything, the practices that sustain the Western society is a front to life. Predatory capitalism. That's all I got to say, right? Just look at what that has done to this planet. That's what the shenanigans is all about. Power and money. It's absolutely against life. So this piece that I'm talking about for us, it's a really important piece to help us stay in our bodies, to help us stay here in our physical form. So we don't get completely lost and caught up in the mental fields and the polarity fields, because these polarity fields are so rich and dynamic and heavily manipulated. There's lots of things that will draw our focus. Okay. So this is really important. All right. Dear Sister Kitty, if you're listening to this, please let me know if there's another piece in here that I didn't flesh out of what your sharing is. I want to say thank you so much for the sharing. This is so huge for us to understand on another level. All right. Let's see. Okay, so dear sister, Soul Schooling says, also, can you clarify if my notes from the previous chats, I have written that the light body is in 7D and the blueprint is in 6D, but this chat, I seem to have mixed it up. Yeah, the tone, the frequency, the sound that is a precursor to the form, right? So our bodies are 9-dimensional, but the sound, the frequency of our consciousness is what is the predecessor to the light, to the form that is the light body. That's what that is. The light body is the form. And our gateway to perceiving that light body is our thyroid gland. It's a stargate. Okay. People don't realize that we manifest with our thyroid. It's part of our manifestation process. A lot of people feel like it's, solar plexus and, there's those kinds of teachings, but it's not. And what I want to say about that is this is also an ancient teaching that comes from very wise elders, is that when nothing but the truth passes your lips, everything you say becomes the truth. Okay? That's speaking to the manifestation power of our throat, of our voice, and of that stargate of the thyroid. Okay. Thank you for that tangent. All right. I have, this is Facebook user says, I was thinking that these are the entities that have hold of the biosuit. Okay, I'm sorry I didn't I didn't read your thing right on the line that you're referring to. So if you want to refine that, I welcome you to do that. Dear Sister Joanne says, thank you for the topic of the Civil War, as I have ancestral pieces from the Southern perspective and the trauma there as well. This war was choreographed by the deep state for its advantage. It has used this war and all others to keep us divided, angry, hateful, and holding sides. Yes. And how they're able to do that is by all the blood that's been shed on the ground. You see what I mean? All the trauma drama. See, this is how trauma drama anchors, freezes consciousness, and holds it in place. So it's like it holds it hostage. So we clean all that stuff up. We release the life force energy that's trapped in these places of stasis. And now that the land can breathe again, the elementals can move in a different way again and be engaged, and they can remember home again, like that. All right. This next one is from our Telegraph group. This is Bella Daniela. She says, hi, Christina. When you say that the white and black holes are no longer split and that duality is no longer present. Now, this is she's referring to the chat that I did a couple weeks ago. What happens to the paradoxical nature of things? As we move through our healing, our healing journey and through expansion, we constantly encounter the paradoxical nature of dualistic, sorry, that's my foot kicking stuff, dualistic, is that no longer a thing? Right. Okay. So the polarities are that reality is changing. The dualistic nature is changing. This is true, but not everybody is in that experience. Only some of us have been able to unify on that level. Okay. And really the unification started long before the galactic plane. The unification started on a universal level. Let's say, all right, we'll call that in the cosmic. All right. So those of us who have those codes of unification within our cosmic our cosmic self, we're titrating those encodements to this reality right here. We're doing that because the Pachamama has called for that, right? So that's something our ego drivers are in charge of it all. It's all happening within dreamtime. It comes from dreamtime into this reality. And then we digest it and it becomes part of the truth in our biosuit. And then in that it's impacting the telluric realm, and it's having, it's interdimensional connections. So duality will not end, right, all the way, because there's still people in that existence. Okay. For those of us who are digesting these new levels of unification, duality becomes a tool to sharpen our consciousness, our awareness in this plane. So when we can look at two opposite perspectives and understand them as being true, right, and not buying into one side or the other, then we are released from the trap of duality. So this is why the 4D field is so hot, so hot right now for humanity, is because humanity has become extremely polarized. And there's a camp over here and there's a camp over here. And that is energetically keeping things locked in place. As people wake up and they recognize everything that they believed was so is not so, right? This could be experienced as a paradox. But when you're open in your unification, where the unification on all these other levels, there's no such thing as paradox, in the sense of there's a gazillion versions of everything. So nothing is in conflict. It's all a different kind of expression. It's all a different type of time and place awareness, if this makes sense. So duality is something that is a symptom of linear perception. And the paradox that comes to mind is the whole time paradox, right? So you travel back in time, you make a change, and then there's two of you now. So you travel back in time, you make a change, and say you travel back in time where you, in a timeline that you still exist. Your individuation exists. So then they call that the paradox, because you're in this version and you're in that version. But when this much of your reality is opened up, you're recognizing that you're simply stepping outside of the construct of time, and you're actually stepping into the truth of who you are and navigating from that place. So when you look at that, there's no conflict, there's no paradox. It's only a paradox because of time in a linear sense. And if when you're open up to all these other levels, you realize there are a gazillion versions of who you are. That's just how it is. And that's a blessing. It's not anything to confuse you. That is you in your infinite nature, exploring yourself, exploring your individuation. So, and maybe I have a limited idea of what paradox is, but that's my knee-jerk response to a question like that is, when you are open up to the infinite possibilities of who you are, then there's no conflict going on. Everything is in consistent expression. Stepping outside of time, because linear time only exists in this nesting doll, right? And like I was saying earlier, when you are coming from this inner nesting doll, engaging outwards in these realities, the linear time is here in the 4D. 5D time is no longer linear, it becomes circular, right? But if you're going from the outer nesting doll engaging this way, when you hit the 5D, everything is happening all at once. There is no beginning, middle, or end. There is no time still. Everything is happening in a sense of a sequence, but that's it. All of your experiences that were desired by your infinite nature are happening instantaneously. And it's changing instantaneously. You know what I mean? It's like, think about an ocean and the waves moving. It never stops moving and fluctuating. So in some versions of the universe, you are in favor. You have a lot of experiences and the power over dynamics of the reptilian agendas, or maybe you're part of the mother white dragon races, right? And you spend a lot of time exploring that consciousness. And then the wave changes, and all of a sudden, all of those realities that you experienced are no more. Now you're experiencing realities in a completely different direction. Okay, so I know that sounds floaty, but that's how. But this is how it is when you're working on these levels. The tone that you came out with in the moment of separation, that's not a finite thing. That's an infinite fluctuation. You can go back, even in a human biosuit, and modify that tone. You can bring more dynamics into that tone. You can change that tone altogether, which will completely change the light body that you are. That's the map of your exploration. Okay. So when you go into multidimensional realities, a lot of the rules that we think are so just don't apply. None of it is so. None of it is like that. Our ego driver needs rules so we can have a sense of position of our consciousness in time, space, reality. But once we can let go of that need and look at who we are in these other levels, everything just defines us in a particular position of time, our consciousness and time, space, reality. And that's all it is. And that can change in an instant. That can change in a heartbeat. Yeah. So I'm sitting right here. My consciousness is in this biosuit. It can go in a completely different direction than the trajectory that I have built so far with the nesting dolls of my awareness. I can, completely change that in a moment if that is something that is relevant to my experience. That is, when I'm saying relevant to my experience, I'm saying that my infinite nature decided, okay, let's change directions. I can just dematerialize altogether and be on another planet at the same instant, be in a different galaxy, different universe even. And actually, many of us are walking around in different universes. This is a little mind-blowing. Those of us, when I was talking about the cosmic thing and the unification codes that we're bringing and digesting and stuff like this, this is a real deal. That means many of us are walking around in a completely different universe next to other people on this planet that are walking in a different universe than we're in. They're walking in the deeply polarized dualistic reality, and we're walking in one that's completely unified. How can that be so? That's because reality is not what we were taught that it was. This is a plane of existence. Okay. And I know flat earthers really get a lot of shit, but when you're looking at in the multidimensional perspective, it fits because we are on a plane of existence. Quite literally, Pachamama means plane of the mother or realm of the mother. Okay. This is the Pachamama of the earth, but this is also universal mother. So when we're talking about planes of existence, we can have many different universes expressed on the same plane of existence. We can have many different galaxies and beings expressing themselves and experiencing themselves in the realm of space on one plane of existence. I know that sounds, like it conflicts, but it actually makes complete sense when you're looking at it in that bigger picture way, as an infinite being in a biosuit kind of way. This is how we have entire cities of beings under the earth. Our inner earth is fully populated with beings. We think inner earth, we think, maybe underground rivers and crystal cities, maybe, or, you know what I mean? We think of a different life like this, or maybe even we go into some of the stories that the indigenous told us about the ant people and the infinite tunnels and stuff like this. And I'm here to say there's a lot more than that. There's a lot happening under the crust of this earth. A lot. And that's because reality is not what we think it is. There's a whole nother plane of existence available for beings to experience themselves under the crust of this earth. Yes, that's true. That's so. We have stargates all over this planet. What are those stargates about? Is it, taking us to other stars? No, it's pulling other kinds of consciousness to experience this realm, this plane of existence. That's what that's about. We quite literally steer our sun traveling through the Milky Way galaxy by the kinds of consciousness of the beings here on this planet. Okay, this is huge. This is a life-changing, realization when you start to wake up to these pieces. And I'm not saying anything new. This is something that we have stories, indigenous wisdom keepers that have these stories. And unfortunately, a lot of people in their own tribes dismiss it and think they're ridiculous, but this is real stuff. This is real stuff. And when you open up to who you are in dream time, you start to find out real fast that this is all true. This is all how it actually is, This is why I encourage people to explore their dream time and get out of the game of analyzing your dreams, man. Analyzing your dreams is great for getting to know yourself on a psychological level, if that's what you're interested in. But I'm interested in us people waking up to their infinite nature while they're still in a biosuit. So dreams are excellent for that because there's energies, there's encodements. You are going to other dimensional realms in your dream time. Okay, so you working with the lands, with the elementals of this planet, that is an essential relationship you need in order to navigate the other realms of reality here. Going past the galactic plane, there are elementals, there are galactic elementals, there's cosmic elementals. I mean, elementals exist throughout everything. So knowing how to connect with and work with the elemental realm is essential to be able to navigate your multidimensional existence. Okay, I'm on a soapbox. So there's one really big one, and then I'm going to wrap up here. Thank you everybody for being patient. And this is from, oh shoot, I didn't paste the name. I think Cassidy, dear sister Cassidy, put this in here. And this was just last minute. I think she did it like maybe a half hour before the chats began. And she says, killing and death. What is it you should do and aim for when your death on your deathbed to ease transition? Okay, that is an excellent question, and this is a game changer when it comes to being able to navigate the afterlife. Number one is you recapitulate with people that you love, family members, friends, whatever. Recount your life. Make peace with any regret that you have. Okay? Forgiveness practice it's a thing that I offer for free on the website. There was a weekend intensive that we did exploring the forgiveness practice, and we recorded that Zoom meeting. So, I mean, it's pretty advanced, and so I'm not saying it's definitely not for beginners. Not that anybody doesn't have the power of forgiveness. We all have the power to forgive. And I don't mean the disempowered forgiveness as in you need to forgive that person. It's like, no. I'm talking about acknowledging a very deep truth that is within you, and from an empowered perspective, allowing forgiveness to flow through your body between you and other people heals wounds, heals divisions, it unifies. So when you're doing it right, it's a superpower. And when we do it, we're doing it through the realms of the Akasha and beyond. So a practice like that, having someone who can recapitulate your life with you, those are the kinds of things you focus on. You bring yourself to complete peace and realization that, a full recount and stock of your life. That's what you do. Because what happens is that there's a mechanism, and it's, all right, I don't want to go too far down the AI realm with that, but there's a mechanism in place that forces souls to go through a life review. And if you have unresolved issues in your life, when you go through your life review, now you're in between realms when you're going through that life review, any thought, feeling, especially strong thoughts and feelings, will instantly suck you back into the reincarnational cycle of this planet. So you do this, so when you go through the life review, your heart is as light as a feather. You are completely at peace, and then you can move on. And this is important. So, and this mechanism that's happening in the afterlife, this is part of why a lot of people believe they're on a prison planet. Like their souls have been captured, and in some respects it has been, but in other respects, no, it's still part of it's still part of an experience you've agreed to. So that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked, and hopefully this is helpful what I'm saying. All right, and then she says, what can you do to ease depression issues for those who keep admitting they are wanting to deal with it or feel ready, even as losing a house and a job point in a new life? Is just being there for them enough still as letting them ride out this life? Right. So depression happens for a lot of reasons. And there's a beautiful interview that I posted to the group of Martin Prechtel. It seems simple what he's saying, but it's a really, really big deal. He's talking about language, and specifically the English language, that it takes the life out of communication. It takes the life out of connection because the way our language works. But if you can speak in song and poetry, then you infuse your communication with love and adventure and creativity and life. And in communicating like that, you can come out of a depression. So there's that kind of thing. The other thing that happens when people are depressed is that, they are really attached to something and they can't let go and see what is. There's a lot of programs that are involved. There's all this stuff. But a lot of people actually they kind of become vampires with their depression. People do that. So you keeping clean, energetic hygiene is really important. Holding space for the people that are depressed is very difficult. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, you definitely know what I'm talking about. So what you do is, like, you don't speak to them in the terms of their depression. Instead, you speak to them in song, and you create a dialogue that is different than engaging on how depressed they are. You create a dialogue that opens them up. That's that creativity. Our own creativity can participate in that. Now we have to decide what our roles are. I know my kids also, they talk about that they come in and out of bouts with depression and stuff like this. And, people get depressed because they're not honoring who they are really, and they're not living their truth. Now, that is a personal journey. Nobody can do it for you. And what happens in Western society and in a lot of light worker worlds is that we feel like we should be caretaking that person in their depression. But in reality, that disempowers them even more, because then they can't see how they can pull themselves out. You know what I mean? You start feeding into that belief that they can't do it. They don't have the capacity. They don't have the ability. All right. None of us are an island. We're all connected. That is the truth. But they're experiencing it in a way that's distorted, in the sense that, they are powerless in the situation. And it sucks to watch someone reach rock bottom. It's terrible to watch someone reach rock bottom. That happens. But unless we let them do it, they're never going to wake up on their own. Okay. They're never going to wake up on their own unless they reach their own rock bottom and decide to help themselves. And in the helping of themselves, this is where you can now come in and help them help themselves, versus help them because they can't help themselves. So this is a total reversal on how we're taught to do it. Because I know a lot of people, and this is true in different, psychological circle, or a circle of psychiatrists, psychologists and stuff. It's like, the understanding is that person can't help themselves, so they need me to help them. It's like, no, that's just going to perpetuate their codependency. In my view, energetically, that's what it does. But they hit rock bottom. They hit facing life or death, and realizing they want to live. And in the wanting to live, they're now willing to help themselves. And now when you help them, it's going to be super potent. It'll be very, very potent, because they want it. They're hungry for it. They recognize the truth of what it is that you're offering them, the value of that. Hopefully that's helpful. All right, then we have the next section is how far does responsibility for others living on this planet go? Is killing a human to protect a family of animals under attack as violated as killing or attempting murder at your door when your family they're inside, so you kill to protect them? Right. This is the killing death thing. Life is not what we think it is, number one. Every moment where a life leaves its body, it's already been planned out on the other side. Okay, it's already been mapped out. That moment, remember, all these nesting dolls working together are creating our here and now moment. Every one of these nesting dolls is creating the here and now moment. So that gateway of death was already planned out, whether it be an animal or a person or what have you. What's important is that you decide where on your compass, where you're willing to go, right? Like there's a lot of people who are light workers who have total aversions to owning guns or having anything to do with guns. My relationship with guns is that it's a sport. Not that I want to kill animals, because I don't have the heart to do that. That would hurt me. But I have fun shooting, I have fun, target practices and stuff like this. So it's not incongruent in my compass. But you have to decide where you are with violence. Okay. Violence is, it's a tool of experience, and it's caused a lot of damage, and it's caused a lot of cycles of abuse on this planet, so where are we with that? You can decide where you are with that. Sometimes only doing such an act that is against your soul do you wake up that it was against your soul. Sometimes that happens. Killing to protect, that is a very in the moment kind of decision. I have a feeling that I have that in me. Like if someone was going after my kids or something, I think I could potentially do that. I don't know, because I'm not in that situation. So I can think about it. It's neither here nor there. I just know that if a situation were to come, I'm committing to being present for myself and my body, and then decide in that moment. Those are really, really razor's edge kinds of things. I know people who are amazing, enlightened beings that have taken lives, plural, okay, because of their some of them were drafted into the military, some owned a farm and, were part of the slaughter process. There's lots of there's, all kinds of scenarios. So I don't think that doing that act actually robs you of your soul, though some people may have that experience. It's a very individual decision. That's all I can say. It's a very individual decision. You have to decide how far you're willing to go. And if you are coming into that kind of scenario, remember that chances are you and that person that you're in that scenario with, that's not the first tango you guys have had. You guys have had an interaction before, and it could have been that the tables were turned where you were the perpetrator and they were the defender. Okay. So if you feel a situation like that is coming, my recommendation would be to work on it, on the energetic, start doing a forgiveness practice long before it actually manifests in the physical form. Then see what happens. Use your alchemy, your ability to transmute and transform in these multidimensional levels. Because those of us who are in those scenarios because it hasn't been yet resolved for either soul. Okay. All right. What in general do you think of killing? Okay. Well, I just kind of talked about that. What do you think of punishment for those who knowingly do wrong repeatedly and don't wish to be cured of pain or stop wrong doing or face any issues? All right. So let's take beings like Hitler, for example, right? That is an infinite being in a biosuit, and he was playing a role for humanity. He was playing a role for humanity. So did he deserve to get tortured and murdered? If that's what happened to him, I don't know if that is. Did he deserve to go to hell? Right? All that stuff? No, because he was playing a role. We need to remember that right now, in the past, like I'd say 200 years, we are working out the unresolved issues from violence that's happened throughout this galaxy. Many of us are still unraveling the trauma dramas from Orion Wars. Some of us are still unraveling the trauma dramas of our planets getting exploded and losing everything that we've ever had and stuff like this. So what's happening right now is not the first time. It's most likely a gazillionth reiteration. Okay, so the violence, the pain, the trauma, all this stuff is us doing it again because there's something we haven't woken up to. Okay. Once we wake up to what it is on a soul level we need to wake up to around that, we'll be done with that drama. We will no longer need to continue playing in those games. This is what I'm talking about with that duality thing. Once you step out of that, you no longer have to continue to play the game. It's no longer the major attention grabber in your experience. Does that mean painful things won't happen? Maybe, maybe not. There's an example being there was these monks in Burma that were setting themselves on fire. I don't know if you guys remember that, right? Totally traumatizing everybody that watched it. I mean, but what that was doing, this is according to Not Thick Khan, what that was doing was it was giving an oppressed, suppressed people a voice they didn't have. So that those monks were putting themselves through horrific torture and pain out of compassion, right? They were using their sovereignty to make sure those people's voices got heard. So what I'm saying is once we step out of the dualistic dramas, once we step out of that, it doesn't mean intensities won't happen. It means we have a completely different relationship to it. We, most of the time, will end up very consciously and purposefully step into things. Even though we know it's going to cause pain, even though we know it's going to kill us, we will do it full on consciously for us in a very purposeful way. Okay. Like I said, reality is not what we think it is. Reality is not what we think it is. Okay, and the more we wake up to that, the more freedom we have in our choices and the more freedom we have in the way we perceive things in the world. You know, I got to wrap up. I'm going totally over, but I'll wrap up with this. There was a point in time where I had these interdimensional beings that kept kind of like messing with me and doing things. And I was just like, and really they were threatening me. They were threatening my life over and over again. And finally, I couldn't say it in words because it didn't have access to that kind of communication. But what I could do is that they can see behind my eyes. They can see everything that I could see. So I wrote a note to them and I told them, you know, you can kill me now, but I know the secret of the afterlife, and I can walk into any body, anywhere, and then they would never know. They'll never be able to find me. You know, I wrote that down and looked at it, sent them that message, and they stopped messing with me after that because they realized it's much better that they know where I'm at, where my consciousness is at in time, space, reality, than to have to start all over trying to find me. You see what I mean? Very different way of looking at things. All right, guys. Whew, sorry we got into the heavy today, didn't we? All right. Well, I hope that what we talked about in the way I was putting it, this was helpful and relieved some pressure for you and liberated some of the ways that you're seeing things and experiencing things. Thank you again for being a part of the conversation and posting all those comments and questions. I found that all very insightful, everything that you guys had to say and ask about. So thank you for that. Let's see if there's, if you want to dive into the Dreamtime work, I highly encourage you guys to check out the lightbodyacademy.com website. We have something called the Dreamtime Healing Project. Now everything's getting retooled and changing, but it's still available for a short time to get involved in the current format that it's in. And this is to empower you through Dreamtime. It's to empower you to get past the lenses of who you think you are, past the limitations of the individuation, and connect with who you are on a galactic cosmic level and pull the energy, the consciousness, the encodements of who you are on those levels forward into this life, influencing everything about, you're becoming a direct influencer of how these nesting dolls come together to create your here and now moment. So I encourage you guys to check that out if it's something that resonates with you. All right. Mwah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.